Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we are diving into a crucial question. It's really moved beyond theory and into, well, concrete planning for a growing number of Black Americans. We're talking about the Blaxit.
Right.
We're analyzing this increasing trend of Black Americans thinking about or actually moving abroad, especially as things feel more volatile politically and socially in the U.S.
Yeah, the whole conversation seems to be shifting. It's less who are we voting for and more where are we moving.
Exactly.
And our mission today, it's pretty targeted. We've gone through a whole stack of sources, personal stories, global economic data, the works.
Right.
We want to understand the core motivations, the specific challenges people face and where they're actually looking to go. These Black expats, it's really about weighing the trade-offs, isn't it? Leaving the familiar but maybe fraught U.S. environment.
And we should add some context here. This isn't like a totally new idea.
No, not at all.
Historically, you had figures like James Baldwin, Josephine Baker, W.E.B. Du Bois. They all spent significant time abroad, often looking for some relief from the racism and oppression back home.
Precisely. But what feels different now is maybe the scale. I mean, the U.S. State Department, they don't keep exact track of everyone overseas, so getting hard numbers is tough.
Yeah, that data gap is tricky.
But you just look at the sheer volume of, say, social media groups, podcasts, websites, all focused on this. It confirms it's a real and likely growing trend.
And the drivers seem pretty clear across the board.
Oh, yeah. Systemic racism, discrimination, oppression, and basic economics. It keeps coming up. So when we dug into why people are looking elsewhere, the sources just kept pointing to this deep weariness, like an exhaustion with the status quo.
Yeah, it's more than just political disagreement, right?
Totally. It's this feeling of constant low-level stress, navigating a society where your safety feels conditional almost.
And the biggest push factors, the really visceral ones, seem tied to physical safety, especially in the U.S. context of gun violence and police interactions. We see this huge statistical gap. Let's take Germany as a comparison point, for example. The reported number of murders there for all of 2023 was just 214.
Just 214. Now compare that to the U.S. The FBI data for that same year shows over 20,000 homicides.
Yeah, so
The difference is just staggering, and you can see how that immediately changes the calculation for parents thinking about where to raise kids.
okay, I have to jump in with a question here, though.
Yeah.
Are we comparing apples to apples? Germany is, smaller, more centralized. Is comparing its murder rate to the entire, huge, diverse U.S. really fair?
That's a fair point.
Or is this just the easiest way the sources kind of illustrate the perceived danger here?
It's a crucial question, yeah, about data interpretation. But I think regardless of the strict statistical comparison, it's the perception of safety, the lived experience that's driving the decision. Look at the story from Nicholas Ilias Kelly. He moved to Berlin with his son. He talked about this incident where he almost got caught up in a shooting on the MARTA train in Atlanta.
Right, MARTA, the main transit system there.
Exactly. And he realized if he hadn't been delayed just a few moments, his son could have been right there.
Wow.
And his quote, it just sums it up. I don't worry in the same way that I know I would in the U.S. That constant low hum of fear that a normal day could turn deadly, that's the weight people are trying to escape.
It's an exhausting way to live. And it's not just physical safety. The metrics also point to a broader decline in, well-being. We noted the U.S. fell out of the top 20 in the World Happiness Report recently. First time since they started tracking in 2012.
Yeah, that was striking.
And here's where it gets really interesting, I think. The drop in happiness. It's sharpest among young people under 30.
Right. The demographic facing huge student debt, wages not keeping up, the political polarization.
Exactly. It really speaks to this fundamental dissatisfaction with what the American standard of living looks like for the next generation. So if the big drivers are safety, affordability, a better quality of life, where are people actually finding this? One destination that kept coming up, maybe unexpectedly, was Germany.
Yeah, Germany.
People might initially hesitate, right, given the history, Nazism, the Holocaust.
Understandably.
But modern Germany seems to offer some really attractive economic and social benefits.
It really does offer a lot of stability. It's the largest economy in the EU, third largest in the world, after the U.S. and China.
Right.
And that economic strength means there's a high demand for skilled workers. So the job path is viable for many expats.
And their social safety net, that just fundamentally changes the financial picture, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Let's tick off a few things. 1, guaranteed health care.
Huge.
2, 12 weeks of paid parental leave. And 3, maybe the biggest one for that younger group we talked about, education costs. One expat basically said college costs are like what you might pay for textbooks.
So it effectively eliminates that lifelong student debt burden that crushes so many Americans.
Yeah, it's not just getting rid of debt, it's drastically cutting the overall cost of living. Housing is estimated, 58% cheaper than the U.S. childcare? Less than half?
Think about the constant scramble so many people in the States face just to cover rent.
Exact.
There's this filmmaker, John Carlos Evans. He moved back in 2012. He talked about escaping that daily money stress in New York, paying over $1,000 to share an NYC apartment,
Right.
and then finding a nice flat, not shared, in Berlin for $300 a month. That immediate release of financial pressure has got to be a massive incentive.
It's huge. And that stability, it allows for actual wealth building. We heard from Vicky Germain, another expat. She pointed out that affordability is opening doors for Black Americans to buy land, property, build generational wealth.
Something historically so difficult, often impossible, for Black families in the States due to things like redlining and housing discrimination.
Precisely, a path that's been systematically blocked for many.
Okay, this all sounds pretty compelling. But how hard is it practically to make the move? You hear about visas. What was that golden ticket visa mentioned?
Right, the visa process. Well, having a job offer lined up is the most straightforward path.
Sure.
But Germany has other routes too for students, vocational training. There's even a popular freelance visa for digital nomads and such.
Okay.
But the real prize, the golden ticket, that's the EU Blue Card. It's a special residence permit for highly qualified non-EU workers.
And what makes that so much better than just a regular work visa?
It's about stability and freedom, really. Once you have that blue card, after a certain period, you generally get the right to work across the entire European Union.
Oh, wow. So huge flexibility.
Immense professional and geographic flexibility. It's designed specifically to attract and keep high-skill workers long-term. Okay, so we've laid out the pretty strong economic and safety case for Germany. But we absolutely need to be clear here. Moving abroad, it's not escaping to some kind of colorblind paradise.
Right. This is critical.
It really is, as multiple sources put it, about trading your current issues for theirs. The Black experience in Germany, it still involves being othered, often daily.
Yeah, this is a major pivot point.
Yeah.
Germany offers stability, sure, but the sources show the ways discrimination works are different, but still powerful. One big challenge is that Germany hasn't kept reliable stats on race or ethnicity since World War II.
Which makes tracking systemic problems, proving them with data, incredibly difficult.
It takes away that metric you need to really tackle structural inequality.
Exactly. And you see this tension play out in the personal stories, like Cress Harrington. He's a broadcast journalist, former military guy. He was racially profiled just waiting for a train, dressed in a suit, stopped by plainclothed, secret police demanding his American passport.
Wow. Just like that.
Just like that immediate public targeting. It's jarring, especially if you moved seeking safety.
And what was really fascinating, or maybe disturbing, was how his German students reacted when he told them.
Yeah, instead of sympathy, they actually defended the police. He recalled them saying, just sort of matter-of-factly, Black people commit more crimes.
Oof. That reveals such a different, maybe deeply ingrained kind of bias.
It's not necessarily the same systemic oppression as in the U.S., maybe, but it's this social acceptance of prejudice. It's a different kind of weight to carry.
And then there's housing discrimination.
Yeah.
That hits right where people live, their security. The 2021 Afrocensus study.
Right, that big study on Afro-Germans.
It found housing discrimination was the #1 issue they faced.
And the way it works is tricky. In Germany, apparently, existing tenants in a building can often have sort of veto power over new people moving in.
Veto power. Seriously.
Yeah. So you could be totally financially qualified, meet all the rules, but if one tenant decides they don't want a Black family there, you could just be blocked.
That structural quirk, it brings us back to that really powerful quote from an expat. You're used to racism great back home, and now you encounter racism orange.
Yeah. It's still racism. It just tastes a little different, but the impact on your life is still just as corrosive.
And we can't skip over the political climate either. People leave the U.S. partly due to political volatility.
Only to find they have to watch the rise of right-wing populism across Europe. In Germany, specifically the AfD party, Alternative for Germany.
Known for extremely xenophobic, anti-immigrant views.
Yeah, views that have some very troubling historical echoes.
The psychological toll of that must be immense. You leave seeking peace, and then you find yourself anxiously tracking a party with rhetoric reminiscent of the Third Reich.
It's profoundly unsettling. One expat, Nicole, she used a pseudonym, she basically said the AFD's growing popularity felt like a direct threat to the peaceful, affordable life she'd built for her son in Berlin.
Wow.
She said if they kept gaining power, she felt she'd be forced to leave Europe entirely. That feeling of safety being conditional, it lingers.
And we also heard language itself can be a barrier that reinforces that feeling of being an outsider.
Yeah.
German grammar specifically.
Oh, yeah, that came up a lot. German grammar is heavily reliant on articles der, die, das.
Right.
Native speakers just use them instinctively. But if you make a mistake, which is super easy, even if you're fluent, you're instantly marked as non-native. It's subtle, maybe, but it's this constant signal that you're an outsider. It reinforces that question, where are you really from, every time you speak.
Okay, so if the German trade-off is great social benefits, but
Yeah.
this distinct social racism maybe sounds like too much of a sideways move for some, where else are Black Americans finding success? Let's look at some other global options that seem to emphasize community and safety more.
Right, and this is where it gets really personalized, because different places offer different strengths, depending on what you need, finances, ancestry, climate, whatever it is.
Let's start with Africa. Ghana came up quite a bit. There seems to be a strong pull there, often rooted in ancestry.
Ghana's definitely prominent, especially after their Year of Return initiative. It's a predominantly Black country, right? So that immediately removes some of that daily friction of being a racial minority. And they have established support for expats. Groups like the African American Association of Ghana help with integration, networking. The appeal seems to be connection, community, and maybe an easier social fit.
Okay. Then there's Latin America. Several options popped up there.
Yeah, Panama, for instance.
Yeah.
Seems like a relatively smooth transition, partly because English is the second official language there.
Ah, yeah.
Plus, low crime rates, tropical climate, appealing for families looking for less volatility. Costa Rica also gets mentioned a lot for safety, especially for kids, good schools, and they have a functioning universal healthcare system.
And Mexico, too. Specifically places like Merida and Oaxaca.
Absolutely. Those cities seem to have really strong, established Black expat communities. They're known for being much more affordable than the U.S., culturally rich, and often quite welcoming, including being LGBTQ friendly. Seems to be about maximizing your quality of life on maybe less income, minimizing social friction.
And finally, Asia. We heard Bali, Indonesia, mentioned.
Bali's definitely emerging as a kind of haven. What seems key there is the intentional community building.
How so?
Well, you have organizations like Black in Bali that are actively helping newcomers navigate things, finding housing, international schools, connecting socially. It's less about plugging into existing infrastructure and more about people actively creating their own supportive community, often built around digital nomad or entrepreneur lifestyles.
So it's clear from all these different places is utopia isn't the goal, right? Wakanda doesn't exist, as they say.
Exactly. The sources kept hammering this home. The key is a really disciplined, personalized strategy. You have to figure out what your needs are.
Your must-haves and non-negotiables.
Right. Across financial, emotional, spiritual, physical health. And considering your situation, are you solo, partnered, family?
And that planning has to be really granular, doesn't it?
Ruthlessly granular, yeah. You need a plan for work, remote, local job, start a digital business. And understanding the cost of living down to the details is absolutely essential.
And as we saw with Germany, language isn't just a nice to have.
No way. It's pretty much a non-negotiable for real integration. Just dealing with government offices, daily life. It's all fundamentally easier if you speak the language, or at least show you're making a real effort. That signals respect.
It can maybe lessen that outsider feeling a bit.
Perhaps. And maybe the most crucial planning step, talk to people who've already done it. Connect with other people of color who are seasoned expats in that specific place.
Right. Get different perspectives, not just the shiny marketing version.
You need the real story. And this kind of leads to the one common thread we found, really. Across all the countries, every single person interviewed eventually found community. Despite the different flavors of racism, orange, or grape, finding their people, that intentional, supportive community, that was the constant. That's what seems to make life abroad not just survivable, but actually enjoyable. #outro.
So let's wrap up this deep dive. The Blaxit seems driven by really high stakes, right?
Yeah.
Safety, cost of living, deep political frustration.
High stakes, non-negotiables for many.
But the movement is definitely tempered by this hard reality. You're often trading one set of problems for another. You might escape some aspects of U.S. racism or populism only to face different versions elsewhere.
Yeah, and this really stood out as the ultimate takeaway. The fact that racism exists abroad in different forms. It was largely not a deal breaker for the people who actually made the move.
Interesting.
They seemed to decide the trade-offs, the affordability, the social safety nets, that enhanced sense of personal safety were worth navigating a new set of cultural and racial adjustments.
Which leaves us with a final, maybe provocative thought for you, the listener. This came directly from the sources. Given that Black Americans have, through history, survived and become incredibly adept at navigating systemic racism right here in the States, one expat suggested, quote, "The world needs our expertise."
Wow.
So the question is, how might that experience, those decades of managing and surviving societal discrimination in the U.S., actually function as a form of necessary expertise, a kind of resilience, maybe, that's now being applied, maybe even sought out on a global scale?
That's definitely something to chew on.
Yeah, something
I
to
mean,
mull over if you think about your own potential next move.